What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Week 7 running back trade targets. I went over buy low and sell high candidates at the wide receiver position yesterday, so check that out if you haven't done so already. But today is the running backs. Remember, the logic is a little bit different when finding buy low running backs. We don't care about air yards. We're mainly looking for a stable workload, preferably including some targets each week and scoring opportunities. I do have the running back trade model in beta now. I added it to the website yesterday, so we'll use that a little bit in today's video. But let's start off with buy low, and the first player is our guy Leonard Fournette. I feel like he shows up in this video every single week, but yet again, the model thinks he underperformed, and that's actually both models this week. The receiving model has him underperforming by 4 points, and the rushing model has him underperforming by 3.4 points. He's finally moved into running back 1 territory, but he should be a top 5 running back this season if it wasn't for his insane unlucky streak with touchdowns. He's in on over 90% of snaps. He's 3rd in carries, 7th in targets, with half of his team's touches inside the 10-yard line. I'm not going to ramble on for the millionth straight week as to why he's still being undervalued, because it's the exact same points I make every single week. But know that he's the only running back in the top 25 that doesn't have multiple scores. So the fact that he's the running back 9 right now with 1 touchdown speaks to how incredible his volume has been this season. And once he starts scoring, he's going to move into that top running back 3 to 5 range. So you gotta trade for him before that happens, because then you're never gonna get him. The next running back we should be buying low on is Derrick Henry, and the model also identified him as one of the top 6 buy lows this week. He had a tough matchup in Denver in a game where the Titans failed to score a single point. And I talked last week about how Denver has adjusted their defense to make sure they stop the run. So that sort of performance wasn't exactly shocking to see. His upcoming schedule isn't easy, but the only matchup you should be really concerned with is the Bucs game. Other than that, he should do fine in the coming month or so. Ryan Tannehill will now be the starting quarterback over Mariota. We don't know how long that'll last. It's obviously just going to depend how good does Tannehill look. I can't say that it's an upgrade, but I also can't say it's a downgrade. So really, if you have him or you're trying to trade for him, just view the situation as the exact same. It's not like Tannehill's going to come in here and just light the world on fire, but he's also probably not going to be that much worse than Mariota. So just view it as a lateral move at quarterback. The reason you want Henry is for that weekly upside, that upside that he brings to single-handedly win you a week, and the touchdowns, because he has nearly all of the Titans' touches inside the 10-yard line, and you can't tell me they're going to bring Tannehill in here and all of a sudden move to a pass-heavy game script or pass-heavy when they get close. So whenever the Titans get close, he's getting the football. So his floor is higher than most people think, and that upside is enough to single-handedly win you the week. He hasn't had a Derrick Henry blow-up game yet, but he's averaging 20 touches a game, so one's coming soon. I'm going to throw you a curveball with this next player. How about Devin Singletary? There's a small chance that he's actually available on free agency in your league, but he's expected back this week from his injury. They were on bye last week, so he's had enough time to come back, but obviously just check the practice reports to make sure that he's actually practicing. And if you look at who the Bills are playing over the next month, you get Miami, Philly, Washington, Cleveland, and Miami again. There are 3 really easy matchups in there and 1 very above average matchup. The only game where he's going to struggle is Philly, and I just wouldn't even start him there under any circumstance. But the other 4 matchups, you can legitimately start Devin Singletary. Plus, I can't really imagine his owner is going to ask for a whole lot. I mean, the guy has 10 career carries to this point, and Gore has looked solid in his absence, but Singletary dominated the snaps in week 1. It dropped in week 2, and obviously a 2-week sample isn't enough for us to know their exact plans for him in this offense. but he's the far superior receiving back, and they are actually a relatively explosive offense. So this is not an offense where you're trying to stay away from. I'm cool having players in this offense. So if Singletary is going to be getting 50 to 60% of the snaps, well, I want him on my team for fantasy. And again, I can't imagine his owner is going to ask a whole lot for him. The last buy low running back this week is Marlon Mack, and that might feel odd to say buy low on Marlon Mack when his last game was really, really nice, but he is coming off bye, so I guess if you want to think about it, well, his last game was actually no game, for a recency bias on people, but if you don't like me calling him a buy low, I'm just going to call him a buy. This is just a running back I want to get on my team. He's one of only 5 players inside the top 25 in scoring that has 2 or fewer touchdowns, and he's the highest scoring running back that's already gone on his bye. The Colts have faced some decent defenses this season, and yet they've scored fewer than 19 points exactly 0 times, and they've given Marlon Mack 22 or more touches in 3 out of 5 games. They want to feature Marlon Mack in this offense, not in the receiving game, so that does lower his floor, but he's got one of the higher touch projections every single week of any running back. Now, the rest of their schedule isn't a cakewalk or anything, but this team has a great offensive line, and like I said, they want to give him 20 touches a game, and he's now fully healthy after coming off this bye. Plus, coming off his bye, which means you can just lock him into probably your running back 2 spot and just not worry about that for the remainder of the season. He's still going to cost you a decent player in return, but he's a solid running back too, so you should have to give up a decent player in return to get a solid running back too. Hopefully in your league, the guy who owns him is struggling. He's only got 1 or 2 wins. That'll make it much easier to get a trade done. But even if they're not, I'd look to try and get him on your roster. That's it for buy low this week. Let's move on to some sell high candidates. And Gurley was out last week and Howard did terrible, so you can't really sell high on those 2 anymore. But they both do still rank in the top 4 in percent of fantasy points coming from touchdowns. So if someone's willing to try and trade for them, definitely do that trade. The top sell high that you can actually sell high on remains Mark Ingram. Now, Ingram has 7 touchdowns through 6 games, resulting in the running back 8 overall ranking, even though he's 13th in carries and 37th in targets. Also, take a look at who he's played. Miami, Arizona, Kansas City, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. On average, those teams rank 24th in rush DVOA and 27th in yards per carry allowed, with 4 of those being the 4 best possible matchup for running back yards per carry. He's had the easiest possible schedule you can even think of, which has resulted in 40% of his fantasy points coming from touchdowns. The rest of his schedule toughens up quite a bit. He does get 2 more easy matchups against the Bengals and the Browns, but on average, his remaining opponent has the 14th best rush DVOA and yards per carry allowed, including matchups against the Patriots, 49ers, Jets, and Bills, none of which are going to be easy games. You can try and just ride out the touchdowns if you want, but he's averaging more than 2 green zone touches per game, and that's just unsustainable. You can also sell high on Aaron Jones. It might be a little bit tougher after that just brutal Monday night game, but 40% of his fantasy points have also come off touchdowns this season, and the Packers are just never going to give him a full workload. They like Jamal Williams, and they're going to use him. And even in that dominant Week 5 game against the Cowboys, guess how many snaps Aaron Jones played on? It was only 2/3. 67% of snaps in a game where Jamal Williams didn't even play. So now he's back. He's going to be in around 50% of snaps. He's basically Phillip Lindsay that's gotten lucky with touchdowns. And while that's obviously valuable, we would like Phillip Lindsay on our team too. He's running back 5 right now, and that's not even close to the value he actually adds to your team. He is not giving you running back 5 overall value. I can promise you that. So if someone is willing to trade for him at that value, or they offer you low-end running back value, well, he's more of a mid running back too. So absolutely take that trade. This last running back is definitely going to surprise a lot of you, and that's Ezekiel Elliott. It's not because of his workload. He's been in on over 90% of snaps. He's getting all the goal line work. He's being used more in the receiving game in recent weeks. But here's the thing. He's played the Giants, Washington, Miami, the Jets, and his other 2 games were against the Saints and Packers, and he's held under 100 yards. So yeah, he's been good, but against some pretty bad teams. But look at the rest of his schedule. I would be fine keeping him if the rest of his schedule was average. Just saying he's an elite running back, he's getting elite volume against average opponents, lock him in every week. But he gets a brutal matchup with Philly this week. Then he goes on bye and then plays the Giants. So that's not too bad. He finishes the season playing Minnesota, at Detroit, at New England, against Buffalo, at Chicago, against the Rams, then at Philadelphia in championship weekend. Ezekiel Elliott is an elite running back, but that is a brutal schedule for any player. So if someone's willing to give you top 5 running back value, which is what you should be getting if you do a trade for Ezekiel Elliott, is top 5 running back value, I would probably take that because I just don't see him putting up typical Ezekiel Elliott numbers in those matchups. Because honestly, I don't think I could create a more difficult string of opponents than he has. After that Giants game, there is not a single easy opponent in there. So, those are the top trade targets at the running back position for week 7. Remember, you can see both the receiving buy low model and now the running buy low model at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. Tomorrow, I'll be going over the running back position again, talking about players that you should be starting or sitting this week, depending on their matchup and their usage. So be on the lookout for that video. But that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? And if you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.